You always have it every single time you get a new truck, that itch for aftermarket wheels and tires, and you aren't scared because you just want to look. So you search for the biggest wheels and tires you can fit on your new to you truck. And that's when you end up on CustomOffsets.com searching through the gallery to find the largest setup that you can fit on a leveling kit, or maybe a 3.5-inch lift, or a full-on 6-inch lift, or hey, maybe you just want to, out of curiosity, price out the 9-inch lift with 37s and check to see if that's gonna fit. We've all been there, I get it, I really do. That's why we're here to talk about the biggest wheel and tire setups you can fit on your 2020 or newer Chevy Silverado. Now, before we dive into this, can we just appreciate the fact that GM finally decided it was time to round out their wheel wells so you can fit larger than 33s on your 6-inch lift. About damn time. Not to mention the slightly oversized front brakes that require 3/8 spacer to clear most wheels, but luckily that won't affect your fitment or trimming too much. You may just need to do a little bit more plastic trimming to clear it, it'll be fine. But if you're looking for the biggest setup that you can possibly reasonably fit, like not possibly fit, like reasonably fit, and I say reasonably because sure, you can fit anything, but we're not over here trying to stuff 40s on a 4-inch lift kit and quite literally drive straight home. But these setups are what will push the edge, require slightly more trimming, but once it's done, it'll look so damn good. So if you have an AT4, you already know that they have a 2-inch leveling kit from the factory. If you don't have an AT4 or didn't know, the stock trucks are stock. So putting a leveling kit up to 2.5 inches of lift, which also then includes your stock AT4s, you're looking at a 20x10 with a rounded -18 offset. You'll see that a lot of 10 wides have a variety of offsets, ranging from like -12 all the way to -24 and kind of pushing the limits. All that changes is how much your tires are gonna poke out. Now, -18 to -24 millimeter offset is only gonna change your offset amount by 6 millimeters, which is like that much. So when you're looking at your 10 wides, sure, you might wanna go with a less aggressive offset. However, you're not changing that much by going with a -24 versus a -18. Just sounds a little bit different. Paired with that, then you're looking at a 33x12.5, or what's really common in our gallery is a 305/55 R20. Putting those two together on a leveling kit is something that a lot of the older generations of Chevy had like 6.5 inches of lift they needed to have to clear that same wheel and tire setup. So it's just crazy that finally Chevy listened, they have round wheel wells, and you can fit a decent setup on a leveling kit, and it looks good. Now, jumping up to your 4-inch lift kit, I personally, now just putting this disclaimer out there, the diameter of the wheel does not affect fitment. So you could have a 28 or you could have a 17. The height of the wheel does not change how it's gonna fit on the truck. But personally, for me, with 4 inches of lift, the 10 wide that I would choose, because you can put a 10 wide on your leveling kit, I would go with a 22x10 with a -18 and -24 offset on a 4-inch lift. Reason for that is the tire size you can fit on a 4-inch lift is a 35/12.5. And just for me personally, 22s, 35s looks phenomenal. I love it. Good look. And if you don't want to do that though, you could go with a 20x10. You could go with an 18x10. It might not clear your calipers, but you could still try it. And you could go 26x10 if you wanted to. But the fact remains that finally, Chevys on 4 inches of lift, you can run 35s comfortably, albeit it's gonna be a 10 wide, and you can kind of mix these up too, right? So taking a 22x10 and 35s, you could also look at a 22x12 and a 33, or a 20x12 and a 33. Because you're not going quite as wide, you can go a little bit taller then. So obviously it all kind of depends on how much trimming you wanna do, but at the end of the day, what really matters is the fact that you can fit 35s on a 10 wide, on a 4-inch lift, on Chevys, reasonably, remember, because we're not driving straight home for the first time in pretty much forever, because round wheel wells, baby. Now, probably the most popular lift kit size for like, if you want like a little bit taller, but you don't want too tall, but you still want to stand out, 6-inch lift is the way to go. But on a 6-inch lift, you can do 22x12s with a -44 offset and 35/12.5s. So the 22x12s with a -44 offset and the 35/12.5s on a 6-inch lift is playing a little bit safer, I would say. So if you don't want to do quite as much trimming, this is probably the option for you. What some guys are doing on their 6-inch lift is doing 14 wides with 35s, which is probably what I would do. I think it looks really good, but the fact remains that you're still cutting into a brand new truck and trimming to make it fit, and some people just don't like that. They'd rather trim a little bit of plastic versus trimming your whole bumper. So 12 wides and 35s is the safer bet. Otherwise, you can go 14 wides, 22 14, 24 14, 26 14, whatever you want with 35s, and it'll fit with a little bit more trimming, but it looks better in my opinion as well. So last up on your list, if you remember me talking at the very beginning of this video, if you're dreaming and looking at that 9-inch lift and 37s and trying to figure out if it'll fit, if you have to cut, how much you have to cut, if it's gonna look good, we're finally there, baby. If you're looking to go all out, there's a couple different options out there. You've got your 7-inch to 9-inch McGaughy's lift kits, or ReadyLift has an 8-inch lift kit as well, which all kind of fall into the same 8-inch to 9-inch lift kit like end game that we're kind of gonna be basing the fitment for these off of, which conveniently you can pick all up at CustomOffsets.com. With a 9-inch lift or 8-inch lift, whatever, you get the idea. The safer bet, and what a lot of people kind of run on these, is a 24x14 or 26x14, just a 14 wide with a -76 offset. Or if you're Archon, a -81 offset, which again, remember, it's a 5mm difference. So looking at your -76 offset, let's say it sticks out this much, 5 more millimeters out, boop, that's your -81 offset. And that's about it. So your 14 wides with like a -76, -81, whatever offset, and a 35x13.5. Obviously, if you're running a 14-inch wide wheel, you're gonna want a tire that pretty much covers all of that, unless you're into the whole stretch look, but not gonna recommend it. So a 35-13.5, which is what I have on my truck, fits really well with a 14 wide and sits pretty much square. There's a little bit of stretch, you could say, but for the most part, if you're going with an MT that has some luggy sidewall, it's gonna sit pretty square. The other option, if you don't wanna go 14 wides and you wanna go a little bit taller with it, is 12 wides and 37s. And that's gonna be a little bit safer bet as far as cops not wanting to pull you over, all of that fun stuff with the 12 wides. You only have about 4 inches to 6 inches poking out instead of 8-ish. And then the 37s, but obviously with 37s, you may run into issues with either having to re-gear or any other fun stuff because you're running a bigger tire. Now, if you wanna go all out, there's two ways of going about it. You either cut the f out of everything, or you run an aftermarket front bumper. And if you do either of those two things, you are able to run 14 wides and 37s on your 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022 Chevy Silverado 1500. Let me tell you, that look is the move. Just gonna say it. It looks good. Now, with these new body style trucks, GM did something a little bit different than all of their other trucks, and the suspension geometry is different and a bunch of science is in it, but basically, lift kits don't push the track width on the front out as much as they used to. So that's part of the reason that you're seeing a lot of these trucks can finally run bigger wheels and tires, because the fronts don't stick out as much as they used to with the wider track width on the older body styles. Now with that, round wheel wells are also part of it, so that makes it nicer. And the track width combined, you can run bigger wheel and tire setups. Now, some people don't give a shit and they'll cut the f out of everything to make 37s and 14 wides work because it looks damn good. But if you want to play the safer bet, especially on your 9-inch lift kit, you're looking at 24 14s with 35s or 12 wides with 37s. And obviously this can kind of change as much or as little as you want it to look like. If you want 14 wide looks or if you want a 10 wide look, you can pick that wheel and tire setup to kind of narrow your width so you're not sticking out as much or make it wider. But just know that the wider you go, the more you're gonna rub. And no, spacers aren't gonna help with rubbing. It's just kind of that everyone thinks it helps, but it doesn't. But that's what I got for you guys on this episode of the biggest setups you can fit on your 2020 or 2019, I guess, or newer Chevy Silverado 1500s. Let us know in the comments below what you're running, if there's a certain truck you want to see the biggest setups for next. And of course, as always, you can find all the fitment info you need for your truck at CustomOffsets.com/gallery. And you can get wheels, tires, suspension, performance accessories, everything you need for your truck at CustomOffsets.com. So I got for you. Peace.